We continue now at the top of Daf Pei Dalet Amud Beis in Meseches Zevachim. This is Zevachim Daf 84b. The Gemara is in the middle of bringing a brisa. Rabbi Shimon includes a bunch of cases where if they go up on the Mizbeach, they don't come down, and then a bunch of cases where if they go up on the Mizbeach, they do come down from the Mizbeach, again in situations of disqualification. And so the brisa is in the middle of asking, once we know that the pasuk hakos of the pasuk includes some things, umiyet, and also the pasuk excludes, how do we know what to include and what to exclude? And the answer according to Rabbi Shimon is, Marba aniyas elu shayapsulan Kodesh, we include all things where the disqualification took place in the Kodesh after they enter the Azara. There, those kinds of disqualifications. But if the item went up on the Mizbeach, it stays on the Mizbeach. Umotzi ani aselu shelo haya psulan b'Kodesh, and I exclude those things where the disqualification did not take place in the Kodesh. And the Gemara continues for Rabbi Yehuda. Now Rabbi Yehuda, Ma'isi lo mehacha, he brings it from here, meaning how does Rabbi Yehuda know to include all of these items which Rabbi Shimon included in the Brisa? Rashi explains, Rabbi Yehuda Maisi Lo Lishar Psulin Mehacha. Rabbi Yehuda derives the other disqualifications which, if they go up on the Mizbeach, they stay on the Mizbeach. He brings those from here, from the following. Mipnei Ma'amru Lon Bedam Kasher. Why do they say that by blood, if it's left overnight, it is kasher? And the word kasher over here means that if it goes up on the Mizbeach, it stays on the Mizbeach. As Rashi says, Lon Bedam Kasher Shim Ola Lo Yered, that if it goes up on the Mizbeach, it doesn't come down. How do we know that by blood? Shaharei Lon Kasher Be'emurin, because we find that when it comes to emurin, sacrificial portions, if it's left overnight, it is kasher. Rashi says, Shaharei Lon Kasher Be'emurin Shim Ola Lo Yerdu. If they go up, they don't come down from the Mizbeach. And continuing, Lon Be'emurin Kasher. Now, how do we know that? How do we know that if it's left overnight by the sacrificial portions, that it stays on the Mizbeach? Shaharei Lon Kasher Be'basar, because we find that by the meat of the carbon, if it's left overnight, it is kasher. And that's a reference to Rashi explains, Shaharei Lon Kasher Be'basar, Kagon Besar Shlamim, for example, the meat of a carbon shlamim, which can be left overnight. Hanacholin L'shnei Yamim, that's allowed to be eaten for 2 days, so that's actually allowed to be left overnight. And Yotzei, what about when it comes to Yotzei, something leaves the Azara of the Beis HaMikdash? So there also we find Shahayotzei Kasher Be'bama. We find that in the time that Bamas were allowed, which were altars outside of the Beis HaMikdash, so Yotzei was obviously kosher. And Tameh, and why do we say by Tameh that if it goes up on the Mizbeach it stays? Hoel v'huter la'avodas tzibor. Since when it comes to avoda of the community, Tumah can be permitted in situations where the community is Tameh, so that's why we say that by Tumah. And Rashi explains by Yotzei when it comes to leaving the Azara, uveyotzei de emure ola ve'emure kachim. We're talking about Yotzei by emure ola and emure kachim. The Shinui Nuschos changes it to de evare, that it should be evare ola, the limbs of an ola, ve'emure kachim, and the sacrificial portions of kachim. By an ola, it's entirely burned. Avol Yotzei de dam. Now Rashi notes the Yotzei we're talking about is specifically the evarim of the ola and the emure kachim. Those are the ones where Rav Yehuda says that they stay on the Mizbeach. Avol Yotzei de dam, but when it comes to the case of Yotzei by blood, so we said this on the previous Amud, Posel Rabbi Yehuda, there Rabbi Yehuda actually says it is disqualified, and it does come down from the Mizbeach. The nafki lo tlasa psule mitlasa miute, because as we said on the previous Amud, he has 3 exclusions that he learns from the pasuk. Umistabra lemuute Yotzei de dam, and it makes sense to say that we're going to exclude Yotzei of dam. And the next part of Rashi, the Sos change it to a new divrei hamaschil. We'll read it over here. V'nishchat chutz lizmano. When it comes to nishchat chutz lizmano, we'll see back in the Gemara in a moment. When it comes to a situation where it's slaughtered with intention outside the proper time, de'eshkechon le'ritzoy afilu bifnim. There we do find it's accepted even inside in a certain sense. Shemaratze lepigulo le'anish kares, because when it is slaughtered with that intention chutz lizmano, it still is accepted in the sense that it now becomes pigul. That shchita that was done, let's say, with the wrong intention of chutz lizmano makes the carbon pigul, and now there's a punishment of kares, so it is in a certain sense accepted, and therefore if it goes up on the Mizbeach, it stays on the Mizbeach. And so again, the Gemara continues of the various derivations of Rabbi Yehuda. So again, we said that by Yotzei, it's because Yotzei is kasher bebama. And then when it comes to Tameh hol v'huter la'avodas tzibur, as we said, by Tumah we say that it's mutter when it can be mutter when it comes to the avod of the community, and chutz lizmana, which we just saw Rashi, when it comes to an intention, it's slaughtered with an intention outside the proper time, as we saw in Rashi, ho'elu meratza lepigulo, since in a certain sense it is accepted in terms of the halachos of pigul, and chutz lemekoma, when it comes to slaughtered with intention outside the proper place, ho'el ve'iskish lechutz lizmana, that's compared to slaughtered with intention outside of the proper time. So that's why, again, in that case, if it goes up on the mizbeach, it stays on the mizbeach. And then shekiblu psulin v'zarku es damo, let's say disqualified individuals, they receive the blood and they throw the blood, and so there we say bahanach psulei techazu lavod asibur. That can be talking about disqualifications, disqualified individuals that, again, in a situation of a community that we would say it's accepted, like for example by Tumah, as Rashi says, dechazu lavod asibur kagon tameh, it's chazu lavod asibur, for example, a situation of Tumah. And the Gemara continues and asks, can you learn something out in a situation where it wouldn't be kosher in that fashion from something where it is kosher in that fashion? And Rashi explains the question, davar shelo b'hechshero, something which is not being done properly, could go in lon be'imurin. For example, let's say the sacrificial portions are left overnight, and you're going to learn that out, midavar sheb'hechshero, meaning let's say you're learning that out from a lon be'basar, you're learning that out from a situation where the basar was left overnight, which is perfectly fine by the meat of a shlamim, because that again is eaten for 2 days. V'yotzei the mikdash, and also, for example, you're learning out a case where it leaves the mikdash miyotzei de bama, from when it leaves by a bama, she'ein sham mechitza. There is no mechitza, there is no wall in that situation of the mikdash, because we're talking about a situation where the bamas are allowed. So how can you even make these derivations? That's the question of the Gemara when it asks v'chidan and davar shelo b'echshero midavar sheb'echshero, and the Gemara answers to that, Tana azos Torah sa'ola riba. Really, the Tana is relying on Zos Torah Sa'ola with an inclusion. That's really what we're relying on to derive all of these situations. And when we're going through these various logical svaras over here, it's really just to say why we include certain things and we exclude other things. Again, according to Rabbi Yehuda, some cases are excluded, and then these cases are included. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Hashochet behema balayla bifnim. If somebody slaughters an animal at night inside, v'hela b'chutz, but then he offers it outside of the mikdash, so chayev, he is liable for offering it outside of the mikdash. And Rashi explains Rabbi Yochanan's comment, Hashochet behema balayla bifnim v'hela osa b'chutz. Again, he slaughters the animal at night inside and then offers it outside the mikdash. Chayev mishamala b'chutz. He's liable for offering it outside. And the point over here is va'afilu Rabbi Yehuda. This is true even according to Rabbi Yehuda. The Amarim also b'fnim tered, who says that in such a situation, since it was slaughtered at night, if it would have actually went up on the mizbeach, so then it actually would have come down from the mizbeach. Therefore, one might have thought, since it's not even allowed to go up on the mizbeach inside the mikdash, maybe there is no chiyuv from ma'ala b'chutz. V'lomi boy hanach demalu lo yerdu. Now that's why we're saying this case. We don't need to say a case of where if they go up on the mizbeach they don't come down. To chayev al halasan b'chutz, where there you are chayev, of course, if you're offered outside the mikdash. Kedamrin on perak hashochet, because that's like we say in perak hashochet to hamiskavlin bifnim, because they're accepted inside the mikdash. So obviously there's a liability by ma'ala b'chutz. Elafilo hach Rabbi Yehuda chayev. The point is, even this case, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is chayev, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Pei Amud Aleph.